I'm not a master distiller. I'm not a certified taster. I'm just an ordinary bourbon drinker who's still figuring out terms, acronyms, and brands. This channel wasn't born from expertise. Rather, it was born from curiosity. That curiosity has led me to building a collection of nearly 200 bottles. But more important than the number of bottles in my collection are the stories. Stories of discovery, of trial and error, and learning what I like, what I don't like, and with the fond amazement for how my palate continues to evolve. Let me go back in time to give you a sense for how I got here. My journey started in March 2020, where I had one bottle in my collection, and that was none other than Jack Daniel's No. 7. It was mostly reserved for my wife's legendary whiskey-glazed carrots. Yes, I'll include that recipe for those carrots in the show notes. I confess, there was an occasional Jack and Coke too. But if you'd have told me back then that I'd had nearly 200 bottles in my collection 5 years later, I would have laughed and said, there's not a chance. COVID hit, and once it became clear we were in for a longer journey than what we had ever imagined, bottles started showing up at the house for virtual happy hour events. There was a stretch where a week would not go by without at least one bottle arriving at the house, and more often than not, multiple bottles. I refer to my bourbon beginnings as a story from confused to curious. I didn't grow up swirling Glencairns or debating mash bills. I started with a vague understanding of whiskey, the kind most people have before they fall down the rabbit hole. For instance, Canadian whiskey, well, that must be from Canada, right? Scotch, well, of course, that's from Scotland. But bourbon, well, let's just say my assumptions were completely wrong. I assumed it had to come from Kentucky. Why? Because that's what everyone from Kentucky says. And trust me, don't tell them otherwise. I didn't know what made bourbon different, or what qualified a whiskey as a bourbon. I didn't know about the corn requirements, the new charred oak barrels, or the legal definitions that make bourbon, well, bourbon. Even the spelling threw me off. Whiskey without an E. I thought it was a typo. Turns out it's a cultural signature. Scotland and Japan dropped the E, while Ireland and the US kept it. That one little letter carries a whole lot of heritage. And yes, we'll get into things like that here on this channel. So yeah, I had a lot to learn, and I still do. Not just about mash bills and barrel char levels, but about legacy, ritual, and the stories behind the pour. About how a bottle can mark a moment, about how taste evolves, about how whiskey can be a lens for something deeper. So why does WTF exist? Do we really need another bourbon channel? Maybe, maybe not. This is a channel for the curious, the connected, and the contrarian. To that end, I created this channel for a few reasons. First and foremost, it's to share my passion for this hobby with ordinary bourbon and whiskey drinkers who are still learning and figuring this out. It's not about being an expert. It's about being interested. It's about asking questions, trying new pours, and learning what makes each bottle worth remembering and maybe forgetting. But WTF isn't just a journey. It's a community. A place where we come together to share stories, swap insights, and celebrate the weird, wacky, wonderful world of whiskey. I welcome your comments, your feedback, your hot takes, and your humble corrections. If you know more than I do, please speak up. I genuinely want to keep learning. And if you disagree with me, even better. The spice of life is diverse thought. Speaking of spice, we'll be covering rye whiskey here too, because sometimes the pour bites back, and that is just part of the fun. So what can you expect from this channel? For starters, honest reflections from someone still on the journey. Community-driven content shaped by your stories and your suggestions. Curiosity over credentials. We're here to explore, not impress. Respectful disagreement that makes the conversation richer. Rye, bourbon, and everything in between. Toasted, finished, single barrels, small batch, bottled and bond, blends, hazmats, just to name a few. So for curious sippers, it's about asking questions like, what makes bourbon bourbon? Why does Kentucky get all the credit? Is it really a bourbon if it's from Texas and it's only aged for 4 years? So here's the deal with age. When you see a bottle labeled 12-year-old, that means every drop in the bottle has been aged at least 12 years in the barrel. It's not an average. It's a legal guarantee. And while it might include older whiskey, it can't include anything younger. Once it's bottled, the aging stops. No more magic from the barrel. Just the story sealed in glass. I've grown to appreciate those age-stated bourbons. Not because older means they're better, because they're not always better, but because it tells you something. It's transparent, it's intentional, and it's part of the journey. So if you're just starting out, or if you've been sipping for years, this channel, Whiskey, Toasted, and Finished, is for you. We'll explore the myths, the finishes, the WTF moments that make whiskey more than a drink. Let's sip, let's learn, let's say WTF when a pour surprises us, when a story moves us, or when a bottle reminds us of something deeper. Thank you for joining me, and see you next time on Whiskey, Toasted, and Finished.